And most people believe loyalty is a sign of strength. That standing by someone, no matter what, proves character. But there is a darker version of loyalty that looks identical from the outside and destroys you from the inside. It's the moment when a person hurts you, confuses you, drains you, and yet you defend them. You explain their behavior to others. You soften their actions in your own mind. You begin to protect the very force that is breaking you. This is Stockholm Syndrome 2.0, and it doesn't require a locked room or a hostage situation. It happens in relationships, in families, in workplaces, in quiet conversations where one person slowly rewrites another person's sense of reality. And Joker would say it like this: the mind is not built for truth, it's built for survival. And when survival feels threatened, it will twist loyalty into a shield, even if that shield is pointed inward. And the strange part is this: the more pain someone causes, the stronger the attachment can become. That sounds wrong. It should be the opposite. Pain should push you away. But under certain conditions, pain binds. So the real question isn't why people stay. It's why the brain convinces them they should. Because once you understand that, you stop blaming the victim and you start seeing the mechanism. And once you see the mechanism, you can break it. Right now, someone listening to this is already in it, and they don't call it trauma bonding. They call it love. They call it loyalty. They call it patience. And they say, they didn't mean it, or it's complicated, or you don't understand them like I do. And the voice in their head didn't appear by accident. It was built. And in the next few minutes, Joker walks through exactly how it was built and how it can be taken apart. Because this isn't about judging anyone. It's about seeing clearly, and clarity is the first step out into. Before anything can be broken, it has to be recognized. The bond between a victim and the one causing harm is not random. It follows a pattern, a cycle, one that has been repeated across time in different forms. But today, it's sharper, faster, and more subtle. This isn't just survival instinct. It's survival instinct being used against you. What you're about to hear matters because it explains why intelligent, incapable people remain in situations that slowly destroy their sense of self. It explains why leaving feels harder than staying, even when staying hurts more. And more important, it shows that this attachment is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign that your brain did exactly what it was designed to do under the wrong conditions. Joker doesn't speak to comfort. He speaks to expose. So each piece of this will feel uncomfortable in a different way. And some of it will feel familiar. Some of it will feel like a mirror you didn't ask for, and stay with it. Because what feels uncomfortable now may be the thing that frees you later. And there are 7 mechanisms that build this modern form of Stockholm Syndrome. 7 ways the mind gets trained to defend what harms it. And the first is intermittent reward. Consistency is easy to understand. If someone is kind to you all the time, you feel safe. If someone is cruel all the time, you leave. And prideness and cruelty are mixed. The brain gets trapped in a loop. Picture a slot machine. You don't win every time. That would be boring. You win just enough to keep playing. The uncertainty is what hooks you. A manipulator uses the same system. They hurt you. Then they apologize. They withdraw. Then they return with warmth. They confuse you. And then they give you clarity, but only briefly. Your brain starts chasing the good version of them. Joker would say the mind starts negotiating with reality. If I just do this right, if I just say this better, I can bring back that version again. The truth is, that version is part of the trap. And the practical step here is simple, but not easy. Stop measuring a person by their best moments and measure them by their pattern. Write it down if you have to. Move emotion for a second and look at frequency. How often are you hurt compared to how often you feel safe? Patterns don't lie. Feelings do. And the second mechanism is isolation. It rarely starts as obvious control. It begins as influence, subtle comments about your friends, and small criticisms about your family. Questions that sound like concern but plant doubt. Do they really support you? Are you sure they have your best interests at heart? Over time, your circle shrinks. Not because you were forced, but because you slowly pulled away. And once you are isolated, the manipulator becomes your main reference point for reality. Joker would say this is where the game changes. In pace, when someone controls your environment, they start shaping your thoughts without resistance. The brain depends on comparison. It needs multiple perspectives to stay balanced. Remove those perspectives, and the voice of the manipulator gets louder. The practical step here is to rebuild connection, even if it feels awkward. Reach out to someone you trust, and not to explain everything, just to re-establish presence. Isolation feeds the bond, and connection weakens it. The third mechanism is emotional dependency. At some point, the relationship stops being about mutual support and becomes about survival. Your mood depends on their mood. Your sense of worth depends on their approval. Your peace depends on their behavior. And Joker would say you handed them the controls to your internal state. This doesn't happen overnight. It builds slowly. Each time you seek reassurance, each time you accept blame that wasn't yours, each time you wait for their validation to feel okay, and the brain adapts. It starts to believe, I need them to feel stable. And once that belief sets in, leaving feels like losing oxygen. The practical step here is to create small moments of independence, and not big moves, small ones. Spend time alone without reaching out. Make a decision without asking for their input. And sit with discomfort instead of trying to fix it through them. Independence grows in quiet moments, not dramatic exits. And the fourth mechanism is cognitive dissonance. This is where your mind splits in two. One part sees the harm, the other part tries to justify it. And they didn't mean it. They are just stressed. They have been through a lot. Joker. And say the brain hates contradiction. It will bend reality to remove the tension. If someone you care about hurts you, the easiest way to resolve that conflict is not to see them as harmful. It's to reinterpret the harm. And so the mind starts rewriting the story. The more you invest, the harder it becomes to admit the truth. And because admitting the truth means admitting you stayed, It means admitting you ignored signs, and that feels like failure. So the brain protects your identity by protecting them. And the practical step here is brutal honesty on paper. Write down exactly what happened without interpretation. No excuses, no added meaning, just facts. Then read it as if it happened to someone else. Distance creates clarity. The fifth mechanism is fear conditioning. It teaches quickly. If speaking up leads to conflict, you stop speaking. If setting boundaries leads to withdrawal, you stop setting them. If expressing needs leads to punishment, you stop expressing them. And Choker would say you have been trained, not through logic, but through consequence. And the brain connects action with outcome. It learns what is safe and what is dangerous. In time, you start avoiding anything that might trigger a negative response. And this avoidance strengthens the bond. Because now you're not just attached, you're controlled. The practical step here is to test small boundaries again. Not in a confrontational way, in a calm, controlled way. Observe the reaction, not to change them, but to gather information. If a simple boundary leads to hostility, that tells you something real. The sixth mechanism is identity erosion. At the start, you know who you are, your preferences, your values, your voice. Over time, those edges soften. You compromise. You adjust. You adapt. At first, it feels like flexibility. Then it becomes loss. Joker would say you're being rewritten. The dang compod. Here is subtle. You don't notice it day to day. Input, you look back and realize you no longer recognize your own reactions. You tolerate things you once rejected. You stay silent where you once spoke. You accept explanations that once felt absurd. And the bond is stronger now because it's no longer just about the relationship. It's about who you've become within it. And the practical step here is to reconnect with your past self. What did you believe before this? What did you tolerate? What did you refuse? Nigh it down. Compare to now. That gap tells a story. The seventh mechanism is hope. And hope is usually seen as positive. But in this context, it can be the final chain. Empor says they will change. Hope says this will get better. Hope says this is temporary. And Joker would say hope, when misplaced, becomes a cage. Because hope keeps you invested in a future that may never come. It keeps you waiting. It keeps you explaining away the present. And the mind holds on to the idea of what could be, instead of facing what is. And as long as that hope remains unchallenged, the bond holds. And the practical step here is to separate potential from reality. What has actually changed over time? And not what was promised, not what was hinted at. What has consistently improved? If the answer is nothing, then hope is no longer serving you. At this point, something becomes clear. This bond is not built on love. It's built on conditioning, and conditioning can be broken. And breaking it doesn't start with leaving. It starts with seeing. Seeing the pattern without distortion. Seeing the cycle without excuses. Seeing the cycle without excuses. And seeing your own responses without judgment. Joker would say awareness is the crack in the system. In your reign now, when you see it, you can't unsee it. The explanations start to sound different. The extifications feel weaker. The pattern becomes obvious, and that's when something shifts. Not dramatically, not overnight, quietly. You pause before reacting. You question before accepting. Notice before excusing. And in those small moments, control starts to return. And the person who once defined your emotional state begins to lose that power, not because they changed, because you did. There is a moment in every breaking point where the fear of staying becomes greater than the fear of leaving. Joker doesn't rush that moment. He doesn't force it. He prepares you for it, because when it arrives, you won't need permission. You'll need clarity. And clarity has been building this entire time. Internal Langshans. Think about the version of yourself that existed before this bond. Not a perfect version, into a version that felt whole. That version still exists. It hasn't into disappeared. It's been buried under adaptation. Each step you take now is not about becoming someone new. It's about uncovering what was already there. God, the voice you silenced, the boundaries you lowered, the instincts you ignored, they're still there. In waiting, Joker would say freedom is not given, it's remembered. And once remembered, it becomes difficult to ignore. And there will be resistance from them, from your own mind, from the habits you built. And call and well accepted, because anything that kept you in place will try to keep you there. But now you know the structure, you know the mechanisms, and knowledge changes the equation. You're no longer reacting blindly, you're observing. And observation creates distance. And distance creates choice. And choice is where control begins. If any part of this felt familiar, don't rush to fix everything at once. That's another trap. Slow change is stable change. Pick one pattern. Notice it. Interrupt it. Then another. Then another. Over time, the bond weakens, not because you forced it to break, but because you stopped feeding it. And eventually, what once felt impossible becomes obvious. You were never meant to stay trapped. You were trained to. And training can be undone. If this made you pause and see something you hadn't seen before, stay connected to this kind of thinking. And subscribe so you don't miss the next piece, because awareness, once started, should not be interrupted. And if you ever caught yourself defending someone who keeps hurting you, ask yourself one question in the comments. At what point did I start explaining their behavior instead of questioning it? That answer might be where your way out begins.